Hello! Dr. Modelstein here. It is great to be here once again on Wednesday Night Live. I hope you have had a great week and perhaps even had a chance to work on your model kit projects. Next week will be our July show and tell, so make sure to finish up those builds and send in your pictures before next Wednesday. We have had guests on the show with us the past several weeks, which sometimes does not leave much time for the live chat. But we haven't forgotten about you, so tonight is all about you. That's right, we will open the room up. Questions and answers night. It should go without saying, but we will keep the conversation strictly about model kits, or things that specifically have to do with Squadron or our hobby, like model shows and that sort of thing. Hopefully it will be a fun evening, and we might all learn a few modeling tips and tricks. Who knows? I am looking forward to it for sure. Well, as we come into the first week of July, I want to wish all of you a happy Independence Day this coming Friday. The 4th of July is always a great time around here. It is so nice to have the freedom here to, well, you know, build our model kits the way we want. Even if we want to paint everything with Mountbatten pink. Ha! Being that the 4th is right around the corner, that means we are definitely on the road to Nationals now. Just a few weeks away. I know we keep saying it, but it is such a great time, and we look forward to it so much. Have you booked your hotel rooms yet? No? Well, what are you waiting for? You just absolutely must join us there. I will go ahead and end my transmission now so that you can book your hotel real fast before Brandon gets here. Ha!
What's going on, everybody? It's Wednesday night, and here we are at Squadron Live. I really appreciate you being here. It has been a good week so far for us. I hope the same for you. Just too much going on, like it always seems to be, but that's okay. Tonight, for the first time in a while, it's just going to be us. Jeff will be joining me in a few minutes, but when I say us, I mean I don't have a guest. We've been talking to so many guys the last few weeks. From the upcoming model shows, a couple of museum curators. It's just been really, really fun. But tonight we wanted to give you guys a chance to talk back and forth with us in the live chat and just, you know, be a part of the show as much as possible. So we'll see. To throw your questions over in the chat. I am sure we will not be able to get to all of them, but we'll pick some and find something fun to talk about. So it'll be really nice. Let's see. Danny's with us tonight. Good to see you. Dave talking about the B2s. You know, one thing that I can say about that is all of a sudden I can't seem to keep enough B2 model kits in stock. That has been a pretty popular subject here lately. Lawn Care Novice, good to see you tonight. And Sparky Jim's with us. Good to see you. Derek, happy 4th of July to you as well, my friend. Got Independence Day coming up Friday. Always a fun time. I hope you guys have a nice weekend. For sure. Ken, good to see you tonight, buddy. As far as Edward's Tales of the Iwo Jima, or the Iwo Jima dual combo kit, I don't have an exact timing on that, but it is supposed to be. It's one of their July releases, if I understand correctly. So, fingers crossed, we'll have them this month. But I just don't know exactly when those are supposed to be coming in. Ed, good to see you tonight, my friend. And David's in here with us. And David sent us a super chat a little while ago. I really appreciate that, David. That'll help us out over here. We'll put that to good use. And it is good to see you for sure, buddy. Always nice to have you in here, David. Good to see you. Jason, looks like you're headed down to see us tomorrow. That'll be nice. We will be here for sure. Come check the place out. Arnell, good to see you, buddy. Randy, Burger King and books. Very good. Hey, Bill, how are you tonight? And Rex. And let's see, there's Jeff. So he's backstage waiting. We'll pull him in here in a minute. Ed, yeah, ICM is releasing a 72 scale F-16 kit. And unfortunately, I do not know exactly what that is going to be yet. I don't know if it is a new tool or if they are bundling up somebody else's kit. ICM does not usually repackage other companies' kits. I'm not saying they've never done it, but that's not usually what they do. Most of their stuff, they're pretty proud of their own tooling for good reason. So I don't know. I need to find out. It'll be very interesting. This particular F-16 that Ed's talking about is going to be in Ukrainian markings, which makes sense considering that's where ICM is. But we will hopefully have more information on that kit coming up real soon. They've got several new releases that are inbound, and we should get some information about that. Excuse me. Glenn says, good evening, Jeff. So I guess I'll let Jeff say good evening back. How are you, buddy?
Good evening. So has your week been as crazy as mine?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. How crazy has your week been?
Yeah. We don't have that much time, but yeah, it's we're full speed ahead, and I guess you've said it a few times when you're prepping for a large show, you have this mindset of go big or go home. And I start looking at how much stuff am I going to take with me, and
right.
And you initially say, well, I'll take 10 of everything. And then all of a sudden you're like, nah, I probably need 20 of everything. And even if you do 20 of everything, you pack it all up in a box and you get it ready to go, and you think this is nowhere near enough stuff. So, and that frantic mode, I don't know that I will ever be able to go to a show and not have more stuff than I need.
Right.
More stuff than I want to bring. I think it's something hardwired in the brain.
You never have the right number, because if you bring 10 of something, you needed 1,000. And if you bring 1,000 of something, you only needed 1. So you can't ever get it right. But I am working on Russ and Jared and the rest of the crew. I'm trying to convince them that a second semi-truck for nationals is a good idea.
Yeah.
They're not talking to me about it. So,
plausible deniability.
Yeah, they're kind of, every time it comes up, they kind of just ignore me and change the subject. So I don't think it's going to happen. But
it's one of those I can neither confirm nor deny.
Hey, I think it's a good idea. But
hey, if nothing else, all of the stuff, you got something to bring back all the stuff that you buy. So,
yeah, we'll make it. It's ridiculous the amount of stuff that you can squeeze into one semi truck. Actually,
it truly is. Yep. Having spent some time in my younger days actually loading and unloading those things.
Oh, then Oh, well, heck, most of the shows we go to, I mean, we like the Amps Nationals. We kind of went pretty big there. We just pulled our 20-foot trailer. We pull that ourselves, and we can get a lot of stuff in there. So
I remember I had a summer job in high school, and I worked loading and offloading trucks. And I remember that, the boss would say, everybody to the loading dock, there's a tractor trailer waiting out front or a semi. And we would be like, it would be like absolute just happiness if it was a 40-footer. If it was a 53-footer, everybody was depressed because that was an extra 33% more stuff that we had to offload. But
I got you.
yeah,
Well, here you go. You can speak to this a little bit. David Miller, our super chat friend for the evening, has just received his PT boat colors that he ordered.
excellent. Excellent.
Well, maybe he hasn't received them yet, but the PT boat colors, Jeff, they're just finally starting to roll out a little bit at the time. We got the Copperoid Red, which is for the hull, and there's a couple of the others. I saw tonight. I saw coming through the production line that she had a couple of the grays and greens queued up. So there's a lot more unique, specific colors that are for those boats than I guess I realized.
Yeah. The initially PT boats were delivered, and I am by no means an expert on PT boat camouflage, but PT boats were originally actually delivered in a lot of the 5 series colors, overall 5.0. Some of them wore 5N navy blue, and then they started changing and applying different greens to them. The 44 series greens and the 45 greens, the G series that match the 5 series, the 5G series. And then there were adapter schemes that used black and white, like zebra stripes. Some of those were used in the Med. And then, of course, the Navy finally adopted the Measure 32 camouflage schemes specifically for the PT boats that used, I think it was 2 different shades of green and black as a color. That's what you pretty commonly see on a lot of the 44, 45 boats.
Okay.
PT 109 was just an overall green. Although I remember somewhere in the nether reaches of my brain, somebody actually thinking that it may have been an actual blue color and not green, but all kinds of different.
It's interesting, because there's certainly a lot of PT boat options out there on the market. I mean, everything from the itty bitty 700 scale stuff all the way up to the 35th scale Italeri kit. Yeah.
And what's amazing is that everyone seems to focus on the 80-foot Elcos.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of bothers me a little bit that no one's ever done the 78-foot Higgins boats and even the earlier Huckins boats that were built. I mean, the Elcos were the most numerable, but
if we get into subjects that have never been put into kit form, we'll be here all night.
This is true.
Man. JL is wondering if anybody is watching Nautilus dive. Know anything about that?
No idea.
I don't know, JL. Anybody that's up on that, watching it, throw it up in the chat. I certainly don't know anything about it.
I've been covered in 3D printer resin all day, so I have no idea what's going on. Man. Mike Bishop summed it up. He solved the PT boat color dilemma that when the Klingons.
There you go.
Thanks, Mike. I kind of needed that laugh today.
Oh man, good to see you tonight, Wayne and Rick Bangs here. Hey, you got your Cavite Blue? Good deal. Yeah, we slowly but surely getting everything, and actually in a couple of minutes I'll throw the full color chart for the first time. You guys can see it, all 440 colors. The entire color chart has been finalized, and we are probably, I don't know, maybe 75 to 80% done with the production, and fingers crossed we're on the path to having all of them at nationals. We'll see. If we don't quite make it, it'll only be by a few.
What I want to know is, you and I have been collaborating on this for the better part of 6 months now, and we had, set on 420 colors. How did we end up with 440?
I guess I'm just a little crazy. Back to David here. He says he's planning on doing one as good old PT 109.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, going to do a couple others too, it looks like. That'll be
There's
good. What
David,
scale are you doing these in, David, if I can ask? Go ahead, Jeff.
There's a Facebook group that's run by naval historian by the name of Al Ross, and Al is a legend in the ship model community, and he focuses specifically on small combatants, and PT boats are his area of expertise.
Okay.
So do a search for small combatants on Facebook, and you'll find Dr. Al Ross's group. And I'll tell you, just even if you don't contribute to it, just the photos that get posted by the guys that are doing archives research and whatnot is pretty amazing stuff.
All right. Well, I'm just going through while you talk, Jeff. I'm just popping up everybody's greetings on the screen. So say hello without saying it while we talk about other things here. So let me ask you this, Jeff, if you happen to know, and if you don't know, maybe everybody in the chat knows, how many PT boats are there around that are museums or that you can go see? Do you happen to know? Or do you know any of them?
There is, and people will chime in, so I'll just be general.
Yeah, sure.
I know that there is one that is operational.
Oh, okay.
That it's I believe it's an 80-foot Elco, and they run it around, and there's a foundation set up for it. I know that when I was up in, I want to say it was in Massachusetts at the museum up there, they have a couple of PT boats that are or were in like a Quonset hut type building, and they were undercover, and they were being restored or
I got you.
Conservation versus preservation, and that's it, I think.
Okay.
I'm sure. Yeah, Chris says Battleship Cove has 2 PT boats.
Okay.
And I know there's a few of them that are running around as houseboats, and they were converted, and a few things like that. But as far as I know, there is only one that is still running around, actually in the water and operational. And
well, heck, I didn't even expect you to say that. I was just talking about a museum piece. But yeah, like you said, there's Chris Decker talking about about a dozen.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the names that are chiming in. Ron Smith and Ed Grun and Chris Decker. I mean, these are the guys that are
okay.
You know, these guys.
I'll scroll down to that. I'm trying to make sure we don't miss anybody, but we may have to jump down and keep up with current questions and whatnot. Recon Models asks, when's a good time to call me at the store? So officially our phone hours are 10 to 3 Monday through Friday. But I will apologize. Our phones, they stay pretty much nonstop on as soon as 10 o'clock rolls around. Yeah. So if you call and we've got I don't know, actually it's a voice over IP. So I honestly don't know how many lines we have. But it will queue, I know at least 2 callers if we're on the phone, but after that it just rings and rings and rings and rings and goes to voicemail. So if you can't get through, I do apologize. The best way to reach me about that, if you need a lot of aftermarket parts and you're wondering what you need, if you'll send me an email of what you're working on, because sometimes I know what you need, but depending on what you're building, sometimes it takes me a minute to figure out what you need. And if you send me an email of a list of everything you need, I can do my thing and figure out what I have and what you need, and I can email that back to you. That's the best way. But as far as the phone calls, just give me a call and hopefully you can get through. I do apologize about that. Everybody likes to call us. But
well, you brought up a good point that if you call and it does just ring and ring and ring and ring, it's not because no one is picking up the line. It's because all the lines are full.
Yeah. We're either that and do keep in mind too, now we've got the retail store. So sometimes we're talking face to face with somebody, or, I may have walked in the back to, to handle something in the back. So We got a lot of stuff
otherwise
going on.
indisposed. I mean, he'll drop everything for a Taco Bell burrito. So,
Oh gosh, there you go. But no, we 10 to 3 is our official phone hours, and we do our best to stick to that. But sometimes it's just rough. So I apologize if you've been trying to get through to me. But shoot me an email, and you put your phone number in the email too, and I'll try to get back with you as quick as I can. Find you your list of parts that you need. So, speaking of parts, Jeff, you got some parts over there, don't you?
Yeah.
Why don't you show us? I'm sure there's some questions coming up, but right now I'm still just kind of throwing up everybody's hellos. So show us what you got cooking over there while we do this.
So we finalized the packaging and the artwork on the new 350th and 700 scale ship parts. So I apologize for the camera being a little wonky, but this is the
there you go.
Now broken. This is the packaging for the 3D printed aftermarket parts. Obviously, these are 20 millimeter Oerlikon Mark IV Mod 0 Type 1 gun shields.
And now, what you guys might notice, we've been talking for months and months about getting the Blue Ridge models accessories going again. And what you might notice is what Jeff's holding there does not say Blue Ridge models. And what's that say, Jeff?
I need a better camera is what it says. It says gold medal models.
Gold medal models 3D. So we are, I guess, I hate to say the word discontinuing, but I guess that's the correct word. Discontinuing the Blue Ridge models line of accessories.
Right.
And all of our new accessories will be put under the gold medal models 3D branding. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Mostly because, there's the old Blue Ridge models. Everything that we're doing now is new. It's not the same as the old files. The old files, they were good for their time, but fast forward to today, 3D printers are a lot better. 3D designers are a lot better. You can get a better product. So we did not want to let everybody just assume that we were re-releasing the same old good stuff. We're releasing what we hope that you will agree with us is a lot better stuff now. So everything will be under gold medal models. And the fact that we're not in Blue Ridge anymore,
that has something to do with it too. So one of the neat things that I did, because obviously you can see the artwork on the box, but I have created a package within the package. And if you look at the top, and I apologize for my camera, but you can actually see when we 3D print the actual parts, the raft itself actually has the SKU and the parts description, and the top of the box is clear so that you can actually just look at it and,
okay.
GMM 3D 35001 US Navy 20 millimeter early Mark IV. So
excellent.
So that'll give you when they're stacked up or whatever, you have the option of looking at the top and getting the SKU number off the top of the actual 3D part raft, or you can rely on the SKU on the side. And to answer your question, I saw Ron throw it up. The 350th set will have 36 20 millimeter guns per package. The 700 scale will probably be a little more, just because they're considerably smaller. 40 millimeters will depend on how many we can fit in either the small package or the standard, what we call the track box, which is this is obviously a tank track set, but that will be the larger package that we'll use for 200 scale stuff and some of the bigger 350th scale items as well.
Yep. So we'll get all that information out soon. Let me jump back here real quick so we don't forget this. Kimberly asked, what's the easiest and best way to remove pieces from, she said from their sprues. I don't know who there is, but since we're talking about 3D parts and since we all like plastic model kits, why don't we just talk about general parts removals from sprues for a minute? Jeff, I know that we've talked about many times before our squadron nippers. So I would say that one of the most common ways of removing parts is with a good pair of sprue nippers, but that's not the only way. I mean, give us some weird ways you've done it, Jeff. I mean, we've all used X-Acto knives, and we've probably all yanked them off of sprues. But I mean, what are some tricks that we can?
I use a photo etched razor saw.
Okay.
There is a company out of the Czech Republic, and their name eludes me at the moment, but they make.
Are you talking about CMK and their little itty bitty miniature razor saws? Yes.
Yes. Yep. And they're a photo etched blade.
Yep.
And they are like the old razor blades that you used to shave with, the double-sided razor blades. And they have a coarse saw blade on one side and a fine saw blade on the other. And those are pretty much my go-to. However, I was at a model club meeting this past weekend, and one of the club members brought in this new toy called an ultrasonic cutter.
Oh yeah.
And apparently this thing moves at like hypersonic speeds, and you don't see it. It's not like a miniature version of a Sawzall. It when you're looking at it and it's running, you know it's running because you can feel the vibration, but you can't see it. And he was cutting parts off the sprues like it was nobody's
I've
business.
seen that kind of stuff. That's kind of the same concept as the heated X-Acto knives.
Yeah,
I've seen that. And Kimberly, she asked again. She specified she was talking about 3D parts. So 3D parts, that's a little bit of a
3D parts are, and it hinges entirely upon how the part is set up and who's manufacturing the part.
I would say for the most part, plastic model kits, cutting a plastic part out of a sprue is pretty standard across most kits. 3D printed parts, oh man, it's going to be different between manufacturers.
If a manufacturer has done their homework and has engineered the parts properly, they should literally just snap right off the build. With a minimal amount of cleaning. Anyone who's ever done my 3D tracks, the tracks, they snap right off. And I always try to conveniently hide any attachment points in areas that obviously won't be seen. The best way is probably the razor saw for stuff that is super fragile. And then, of course, your standard good old nippers.
If you use nippers for 3D parts, because every manufacturer is different, there are so many different types of resins. People, like Jeff said, people can set their supports up differently. They can set them up thicker than the next guy. They can actually be in supports sometimes print differently than the rest of your part, and they can actually be inset inside the part. So when you cut it, it can create a divot on your part. There's so many different things that can be different between different parts. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to use these, test them out a little bit and get used to how those 3D parts react. I want to show you, if I've got one here. This is a tool. Jeff and I have this really weird habit lately of trying to come up with something, and it's absolutely terrible for the idea that we had, and we're like, wow, we can't use it for that. But then we come up with this other use it's like genius. And this item here is, the intended purpose is really great, but it has a second purpose that we have recently found out. And this is good old Squadron Tools. This is our seam scraper. Yep. And we advertise this as a seam scraper. It's got a nice sharp blade on both ends. And I mean, you can imagine what it's for, scraping seams smooth. What we are going to start marketing this as also is a 3D part support removal tool. This thing works wonderfully for getting those parts off the 3D model. And the workflow is use your nippers, and don't cut it flush. Leave, I don't know what, 1/8 of an inch, quarter inch, depending on what it is. Just get it cut off there and leave a little nub. And then take this Squadron seam scraper and just scrape it off, and it comes off. It's almost too good to be true. When I figured, I accidentally figured out that it would work for that. And it was funny. We went to Wonderfest, and Randy that we talk about, the figure painter, he came over to the booth, and he had bought one of these sometime before. And we were already working on packaging that caused this 3D support remover, or whatever it is we're calling it. Randy runs up to the table and he's like, Brandon, I've got to tell you something. Your seam scraper is an excellent 3D parts support remover. And I just started laughing because somebody else figured it out by chance too. But the Squadron seam scraper is an excellent tool for scraping off supports on 3D parts.
I have a set of micro chisels.
Okay.
Oh, and I don't even know where they came from, but one of the micro chisels has a notch cut in it. So it's well, here, you know what? This is the beauty of doing this impromptu. So that the chisel actually kind of looks like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And this area here is the inside area is the part that's sharp.
Okay.
And I have been using that to remove 3D supports in areas where you can't get a pair of nippers in.
Yeah, I've got one of those. It's black, isn't it? Yep. It's we sell those, and I can't remember the brand right now.
Is it Trumpeter that made
it? Is, but it's not Trumpeter. It's their tool brand, whatever I forget what their tool brand is.
But that works exceptionally well, and they are obviously super sharp. So if you miss and you stab yourself with it, you will you will bleed. I can promise you that. Yeah. And
well, that hopefully gives you a couple of ideas, Kimberly. Kimberly, I feel like you have ordered some of our Squadron nippers before. The yellow handle or the black handle are really good at cutting those parts. But if you can get you one of these seam scrapers so you don't have to, the problem with using the nippers and trying to cut them flush is depending on how the 3D manufacturer set his files up, it might be wonderful and it also might be horrible, just depending on how that support is inset into the part.
But always put the flat side of the nipper against the surface of the part.
Right.
You never want to flip it over, because then that forces and that's where you get breakage. So always put the flat part against the flat side of the nipper against the part.
There you go. These guys are over here having a good time with some crazy ideas. A Squadron logo on the side of a semi truck. That'd be fun. Maybe we could get a big magnet and just sneak out there and slap it on before the guy pulls out and leaves.
I mean, if it's an unmarked trailer, there's no reason why.
No, actually, we better not. Ken's trying to set us up. He's going to look for that semi truck at the rest stop.
Yeah, he'll be there with a pair of bolt cutters.
Do some pre-national shopping. All right, I see what you're doing there, kid.
The truck arrives at Nationals and it's empty because they've been throwing boxes out the back for 1,000 miles.
Dancing Barefoot says you haven't loaded unless you've worked for UPS, and yeah, those guys, they load a bunch of models up every day at our place for sure. So. Let's see. Who else do we have in here? Oh, while I'm looking for the next question for us to talk about, look what we got in today, Jeff.
What did we get in today?
Our new shirts.
Oh, I was going to make a joke about you getting implants, but
no, not that. We got our new shirts, and going along our slogan that we've been using lately, adding to the stash since 1968. Got a B-17 profile that Peter set up for us, and these are going to be in gray, like I'm wearing, and we've also got them in black. Nice. And we have them in, I think, all sizes. I hope all sizes. You know what? Which sizes I did not get any of this time?
Extra lumpy.
No, I got plenty of those. I didn't get very many smalls. That's what we had. So it's kind of funny when right before we got back into the hobby business, we were doing the motocross stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I was buying shirts for that. Well, all the kids out at the track, I mean, they're tiny like Emmett.
Yeah.
I mean, they needed like youth sizes. So I was used to buying smalls, and medium was like the biggest shirt that I needed. And so when we first started Squadron, I bought around the Squadron shirts. Well, a few years later, the only ones of those I have left are all the smalls and the mediums.
Right.
So this time we got enough larges. I think we got extra large, 2X, and I believe we got a handful of 3, 4, maybe even 5X. So I think I got everybody covered. So
yeah, I people are making comments about it in the chat. This hobby is not conducive to small people.
well, it's
we spend a lot of time sitting at our benches. That's all I'm going to say.
That's we all know what we could say, right?
Mm.
Oh, okay. So here you go. Here's something fun. Recon says, I love the paint. I just need bigger bottles. Well, you are in luck. Well, you might be in luck. So before I show you this, I have to preface this with, we are not doing every single color. To start with, we are doing the colors that we seem to sell quite often, and we continue to run out of them quite often, which tells us that people might want them in larger quantities. So we've got about a dozen colors that we're starting with, and we will see how it goes. We probably won't do very many more than that this year. We're just going to see how it goes, because these are, give me a second.
While he's away, I will make one promise. We will not be doing Mount Batten
These
in a big bottle.
These are big boys.
Yep. There you go.
That is a 6 3/4 ounce bottle. And that's not the right label. That's one of our small bottle labels. So to give you an idea of the size difference, there's the regular size bottle, there's the new bottle.
Right.
Yeah. So they're quite large. Now, all of the primers and the clear coats will be available in this size. And then the paints that will be available in this size, there's, like I said, there's about a dozen of them. If you're a ship modeler, it's the ones that you can imagine. 20B deck blue. This is Norfolk 65A. Again, there's a handful of them.
Black, white, olive drab,
drab
41. Yep. OD, A&A.
Yep. But and I know everybody's going to want their color in this size, and we may get to that, but we're going to start with a few colors and see how it goes.
People ask for bigger bottles, and we give them bigger bottles, and then they complain that the bottles are too big.
Yeah, well, it's all right. Hey, the good thing is you can buy as much as you need, a ½ ounce at the time.
Yep.
Let's see.
Shelf life. Mike, I am still using, do I have any up here? I might. I am still using OG bottles that are 6 and 7 years old. Well,
somewhere up there.
Yeah, I need some of the clears, and a lot of it hinges on how often you're opening the bottles, how often you're using it. If you open up a bottle and you spray half of it and then come back to it 4 years later, no acrylic is going to hold up that well. If you buy some paint now and then you don't do anything with it for 4 years, it's going to settle out. These are not designed to have an infinite shelf life. No paint has an infinite shelf life. There's nothing wrong with building a stock of paint and keeping it, provided that you're cycling through it within a year or two. So,
Well, and even if you're not using it, I mean,
Yeah.
all of my paint, I would say probably once a year, I go through and I shake the mess out of all my paint. And I
Yeah.
know that sounds crazy, but as long as it's not subtle, and I do that with my house paint too. All
Yeah.
the paint the gallons that we have, in case I need to touch something up every year or so, when I think about it, I just go and I just shake it up a little bit. So
Right.
anything, and temperature control, all that kind of stuff, anything that you can do that doesn't cost you any effort or money, anything that you can do to help it, whether it's keep it inside where it's cool, shake it every once in a while, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When you're painting, put it in your airbrush and then put the cap back on it. Don't let it sit there with the cap open for 2 hours while you paint.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Anything helps it. We don't really advertise a shelf life per se, because it can be so different depending on
Everyone's environment is different. I never, it's kind of like when you see in the aviation world, when guys are saying, why can't we keep P-51s and B-17s flying at air shows? Because they're 80 years old and they were never designed to be flying for 80 years.
Right.
The life expectancy of a B-17 when it was built was, 6 months maybe. And that's the same thing with the paint.
Russ is throwing up some comments here about some of the old paint. In that old enamel paint, that's a whole nother ball game.
Yeah.
That stuff, it can last for sure.
Yeah. But acrylics, and especially polymer acrylics such as Squadron Scale Colors is, there's a chemical process that happens with the paint. So if you introduce any form of a catalytic agent, which is air, to the process, then it's going to start that chemical reaction. So, Jason Campbell brought up a good point. He has a vortex mixer. I have the same thing, and it's unlike a paint shaker. You put the bottle on the top, and it's kind of almost ultrasonic. I keep it plugged in all the time, and if a bottle looks like it needs to be mixed up, you hit it for 30 seconds and you put it back on the shelf and you're good.
I've got mine over there. My cat goes nuts when I turn that thing on.
Yeah.
So Brian's got something here, and we'll answer his question in a broad sense, and then I'll change his questioning into another comment here. So he's talking about his Essex that he's doing because of photo etch issues. So he's asking specifically if we have 3D cranes and all that stuff. And to Jeff's point about how did we go from 100 and something bottles of paint to now 440, and I said I guess I'm a little crazy. Take that same concept over into our 3D world, and at some point in time, we'll probably have you'll be able to outfit the entire fleet in every scale. So our intention is to have all sorts of stuff. But as you guys have seen us talking about for the past several months, things take time, and usually a lot more time than we originally thought. But we're doing it right, we think. So going back to those 20s that you had, Jeff, that you were showing.
I was just bringing up the sheet right now.
Yeah. How many different 20 millimeter options do we have? Are we going to have in just 350th scale?
Let me preface by saying that according to the Navy, the United States Navy, there were 181 permutations of the 20 millimeter Oerlikon gun that was used in World War II. Now that hinges from the early, Mark II pedestal mount with a Mark I, Mark II gun sight and a square gun shield, all the way up to the Mark 14 twin 20 millimeter with the Mark 14 computing sight and the lightweight Mark 10 tripod. But there's 181 permutations. So when I started doing the math as to how many of those have visible, noticeable changes that we need to model, I came up with 26.
So we're going to have 26 different options in 350th scale, 200 scale, and 700 scale to start with for 20 millimeter guns.
Just for 20 millimeters.
All right. And just like we are very slowly, but surely getting the paint website to where you guys can see what paint has to be used on which ships, we're going to start as we roll these 3D parts out here in the next couple of months. We are going to add this information to the same website. So when you go into the Fletcher page, for example, that's on the squadroncolors.com site now, it'll tell you what color to paint your Fletcher. You'll also be able to find out, okay, if I'm building Johnston, these are the 20s I need if I was building her in 1944, and here's the paint scheme that I need, because there's so many different versions of these 20s. It'll I'm working on this Midway over here, the Trumpeter Midway. I mean, you open that up, it's got 20s in it. They're twins, and that's where it stops. You pull out the Trumpeter Fletcher kit, the new 200 scale kit, it's got 20s in it, and that's all you know. But there's so many different options of these things, the different shields, all that stuff. It's kind of crazy.
Yep. So here's it's already done, but I wrote a U.S. Navy 20 millimeter Oerlikon cannon data sheet. In fact, it's Squadron Tech Series number 1.
Yeah, and this will be available on our Colors website at some point after Nationals
in PDF. So I've gone through and pulled a lot of the drawings from actual Navy manuals. One of the things that I noticed, there's a Mark II mount, there's a Mark IV mount, there's a Mark V mount, there is a Mark VI mount, there is a Mark X mount. Those are just the pedestals that the gun actually rests on. And then we've got 3 different versions of just the mounting bracket for the gun shield. And then I started looking around through my photo collection, and I noticed not all of the gun shields were, perfectly rectangular. Well, someone had mentioned, well, if it's got a cutout in it, those were the ones that they did for the Royal Navy. No, I've got photos of U.S. Navy ships, even the 4 Iowas. All 4 of the Iowas had different gun shields on their 40 millimeters or 20 millimeters. So these are the 6 variations of the gun shields that I have been able to find thus far. And all of those will be represented in 3/50th scale at least. So, and the crazy part is I thought, well, maybe it was random. Maybe it was, maybe there's some rhyme or reason to it. I found USS Birmingham in 44 had the cutout gun shields. Cleveland in 42 had square gun shields. Iowa had the angled Y-shaped gun shields. And then I've included photos of Iowa or New Jersey, had rectangular gun shields, but all of the corners were rounded off. Vicksburg, which was a Cleveland class cruiser, had both. It had the cutouts and the square shields. So it's you're going to have to get into the pictures.
The crazy thing is, and we really appreciate Jeff for this. We literally pay Jeff to sit around and research this stuff. You laugh, but he makes sure that it's right, because and this is also why it's taken us so long to get some of this stuff to market that we've been talking about for so long. I'm getting a little bit better at not announcing things until they're at least sort of close to ready. I get excited about this stuff, but with somebody like Jeff, we're able to make sure that what we put out is going to be as accurate as it can possibly be. There's a lot of other companies doing the same thing, and there's nothing wrong with it. We sell a lot of these other companies. I see Ed talking about Black Cat. We sell Black Cat. I love Ben. He's a great guy. We're going to keep selling his stuff. There's a lot of companies doing the same stuff. Talk about the paint. we're still going to carry Vallejo paint and Tamiya paint. A lot of companies do a lot of good things, but we want to offer something that we hope might be just a little step above the average as far as the research and the development department. So it's just what we can do, and we hope that allowing you guys to have access to this information, like the booklet that Jeff wrote, by putting it on our website, it'll help you be able to know how you want to build your model ship. Some guys, and I'm in this category a lot of times, some people just want to open their model kit up and build it and paint it like the instructions say, and there is nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
But then on the opposite end of that spectrum, some guys want to make sure, Jeff's talking about the cruisers having different versions of the 20s on the same ship.
Yep.
Some guys want to make sure that if that's true, that each and every one of those 20s is the exact right one for that exact location on the ship. And that's the kind of information that we want to be able to provide to you guys.
Right. I've always held the logic that if you're going to do something, do it right the first time, and there's the carpenter's adage of measure twice and cut once and all of that stuff. And so when I started doing the engineering and the design work for this, there's 6 different gun shields. So I can have a single variety of 20 millimeter gun. Why should I give it to you with one gun shield? And then the modeler has to go in and either sand away or cut away or carve away, the corrections to the shield to make it accurate for that model. If they care. If they don't care,
yep,
then no big deal.
Yep.
But for me, when I was engineering, and this alludes back to, this circles back to what you said about, it taking a little more time than I had anticipated. I had originally anticipated doing, 120 millimeter mount in 350th scale. And now I'm realizing that there's 6 gun shields and there's, 6 different mounts and there's 2 different sights and I figure if I can engineer the parts so that those gun shields are kind of interchangeable, at least in the 3D design, why not?
And not that you will have to build those guns. They'll come one piece that way.
Yeah. You don't have to build them.
Chris says we don't need no stinking shields.
This is true.
Let me answer this real quick. Recon says, do you have any Dora model kits in stock? Yes. I know we have at least one left. We might have 2.
He'll cut you a deal on a half-built one.
Hey, actually, so
I'm kidding. Kidding.
Unfortunately, I have shelved the Dora project. I made that decision this past weekend that I really need to put it on the shelf for 2 reasons. First of all, if you can see it, if you can see it up there, when you look at it on the shelf from across the room, with the exception of the paint job, it kind of looks complete. So sitting up there on the shelf, I'm happy with it. And it occurred to me that as long as I am still working on that, I can't work on other projects. And I got some kits that I really, really want to get done that no matter how slow I am on them, they're going to be faster than Dora. So
that one.
Oh, yeah, the P47. Yep.
That one.
Yep.
I gotta start cutting plastic, to have these for nationals. And
yeah, I know what you mean. Let me pull this up real quick. Or actually, let me answer a couple questions. So Recon, yes, the Dora kit is in stock. They are right here on the website. You can see that. I don't know why the picture's not working, but that's par for the course today, I guess.
Kimberly mentioned that the site has been acting a little wonky. So
it's probably, who knows? So on that, Jason is also asking about the Squadron app. So let me talk about the Squadron app for a minute. So we actually discontinued the Squadron app on December 31st this past year. What I did not realize until this week, when several customers started calling and emailing me saying, why is the app not working? What I did not realize is that the Google Play Store and the Apple iTunes Store, whatever they call it, did not actually remove the the app, they didn't make it quit working. So we had apparently paid for it to be there for a certain amount of time. So we discontinued it and stopped supporting it, stopped updating it. But apparently what was already there continued to work until this week. And I literally just found that out. When we discontinued the app, I deleted it off my phone and I hadn't thought about it again. So Jason, that is why it's acting funny, is because it's not supposed to be working at all. So I apologize about that. We discontinued it. It was kind of expensive, and we had a handful of customers that really enjoyed it. But overall, people would install it and then delete it in lieu of just using the mobile website, which apparently most people prefer. So I kind of liked the app. I thought it was neat having a dedicated app, but for what we were paying for it versus how many customers were actually using it, we decided to devote those resources into other things. So that's where we're at on the app, at least for now. Let's see. Bill's talking about, say, Mini Art do a 35th scale squadron set up at a show. Mini Art, talking about Mini Art, Bill, that's funny you mentioned that. We just got their new catalogs in there. So we've got a bunch of these. We'll bring these to the show and give them out to everybody. So it's going to be neat. They told me a couple of their kits that they're planning on doing for next year. And I think you guys are in for, don't worry. I'm being quiet, but you guys are in for some treats next year, I believe. Jason, going back to the t-shirts. Yes, sir. I got you covered in your size. I'll have it at the shop for you tomorrow when you get down, actually. All right. Let me pull this up real quick, Jeff, before I forget about it. Let's see if I can find it. All right, here we go. All right, so here it is. For the first time, all 440 colors in the paint line.
Is there really 440 there?
Yep, there are 20 on each line, and there are 11 lines on each side. No, excuse me, 21 lines on each side, I think.
20.
11. I've been staring at this thing all day to make sure it was right, and I forget how many lines are on which. But yeah, there's 440 colors there, believe it or not.
Okay, so here's a little bit of a trivia. Go up into the upper left-hand corner there.
Okay.
And count over to, not that far. You can zoom out a little bit there, but count out to SCN 012.
012. Okay.
Yeah, there's 01 to 012.
Yep.
That's those colors right there in that first row are what I launched this company with 8 years ago.
Okay. Well, those would be most of what I call the home run colors, at least for the ship model world.
Yep. It's hard to believe 8 years ago, launched with just 12 colors.
Right. Well, there's a lot more in here now. And this list here, this list or this particular picture is not available on the website yet. It will be at some point. I got to make a few changes and whatnot. But this is what our paint rack looks like. So when you get to Nationals and you walk up to the paint rack, you'll see this, and we've got the flags on there so you can, at a glance, figure out that what you're looking at, if you want the U.S. Navy, if you want the Japanese or whatever. So that kind of makes it easy to look at. SCN, that's the Navy series, or Navy or boats, ships. The Titanic stuff is here.
Nautical.
Yeah, there you go. Nautical, much better. SCA is your aircraft. And one thing I wanted to make note of, I've had a lot of people asking for this one, Insignia Blue, and we decided to put it in there. It was not an original plan, just because usually the only reason you need that is for your insignias, and most people use decals. But so many people are going more and more to masking the insignias now and airbrushing them, so we thought it was a good idea to go ahead and include that. So
000.
Yeah. Well, it's because we already had SCA 001 through whatever already planned. And I was like, well, I don't want it to be down past the modern aircraft. So we just did 000 and put it at the front.
Yep.
Thought it was a good idea. But A's, like I said, those are your aircraft colors. And then we move down, well, a lot of A's. Then we go to the second rack up here at the top. More A's. Then you get to your M's. We call this the military series, but that is primarily your tanks and armored vehicles and, whatever vehicles. That's your 35th scale and your 72 scale section here primarily. We got a lot of that kind of stuff, World War II and after to some degree. Then after the M numbers, you get into the U numbers. This is what we call the Universal Series. Just red, yellow, orange, blue, green. Standard colors. These are not historical colors, but they are useful colors for all sorts of projects, whether it's dioramas or just whatever you might need it for. So we got a lot of that through there. And after the U's, you get into the F's. This is our figure series. Number 1 through 6, that is our figure set that you see on the website now that Randy helped us come up with. And then after that, you go all the way up through number 24 and got all sorts of different shades of skin colors and flesh tones to do all sorts of various types of figures. After that, you get into the C numbers. This is our sci-fi series. And you start out with your starships, which the first numbers 1 through 12, that is our USS Enterprise set, what that's comprised of. After that, you jump into just some fun made-up colors that are primarily for monsters and that sort of thing, moving into your dinosaurs. Of course, Jeff made up that set for us and painted that dinosaur at Wonderfest with all those. It turned out really nice.
There's our dinosaur set.
Okay, there you go. After that, we jump back into some more Star Trek stuff, all the way up through number, where is it at? Number 68. And all these things, again, I know it's taken us forever, but we will eventually have on our Colors website which Star Trek ships these are for. They'll be bundled up into certain sets for certain ships, and we'll lay it out quite easy. Then after that, you've got the Space Wars series, and you can imagine that I'm not a big fan of getting C and D letters, so there was no reason to call it Star Wars, but that's in fact what this is for. And these colors are very cool and very neat to me. And Jeff, I think you can speak on this, where these colors came from, a little bit better than me. You want to let us know what this is all about?
Well, going back to the mid to late 70s, Industrial Light and Magic was putting together all of the models for the Star Wars movies. And it's a pretty well-known fact that ILM pretty much raided all of the hobby shops in their area, and the predominant paint that they used were Floqual, model railroad, and military lacquers. So we went and actually managed to, in some instances, it was actual 1977 era Floqual model railroad paints. In other instances, it was photospectrometry off their one of their paint charts, because they back in the day actually painted their paint charts. So we matched those colors against the Floqual colors. And what the modeler chooses to do with them is entirely up to them. But we've given you the baseline products that ILM used back in the day when they were making their models. And there's been a ton of research that sci-fi modelers and RPF, guys that recreate studio models from these movies, they put a lot of time and effort into doing the research for the colors that were used. So when you go on to a website and it says, hey, I used Floqual Reefer White with Floqual Signal Red, well, if you you can't get those colors anymore. So we've matched to those colors.
Yeah, like SCC 082 that you see there. That's reefer white.
Reefer white.
And I
And
can't remember 80 or 81. One of those is the caboose red, but I can't
correct.
remember.
And 079 is signal red. So
Yep.
so we've matched those colors. Tuscan orange was a color that was commonly used. So
And we'll put that information on the colors website. We will say, SCC 082, this was matched based on Flocal's reefer white. And we'll give you all that information, and we'll give you a little bit of information about what the most common use for these items are. These colors were most commonly used for Millennium Falcon, but a lot of people have a lot of their own opinions about specifically which Flocal colors were used. But we'll give you some general information. We'll give you the Flocal matches that we used, and then that should be able to allow you the colors that we have. This is not all of them, but the colors that we put into our line are going to give you the ability to build things like the TIE Fighter, the X-Wing, the Millennium Falcon, the AT-AT and the AT-ST walkers, the Snow Speeder, and some of the most popular ones that there are readily available model kits for. And then we'll see what we do down the road for some of more obscure colors.
Yep.
But yeah, there you go. And we're talking a lot about the sci-fi stuff tonight because this is the first time we've even mentioned these colors on the show, besides the USS Enterprise set. Previously, everybody had been able to see this list, not in this form, but on our website, the colors list. This is pretty much what you're looking at there, except with the addition of the insignia blue. But all this stuff over here, this is what you guys have not seen yet. So
and we did add Africa Corps yellow.
Oh yeah.
So for the armor guys, we did add Africa Corps yellow. We had an open spot available for that, so we've added that color in as well. I think that part of and focusing a lot on the sci-fi colors, if someone says, paint it olive drab, or if someone says paint it 5N navy blue, if you know the subject matter that you're working on, or if you research the subject matter that you're working on, it's pretty straightforward.
Right.
And even going and looking at, some of the paint call outs that the manufacturers have, if you're looking at a ship and the whole ship is dark blue, but it tells you to, mix 2 parts of this with 1 part of that and 2 parts of this, rest assured it's 5N navy blue. And it's a pretty logical assumption to make. And then you go get that bottle and you're good to go. But the sci-fi colors, no one really, back when they were making these movies, they needed stuff that was going to look right, with the lighting and
right.
the cameras and whatnot. And so there was no rhyme or reason. There was no, there was no rule book, for a lack of a better term. So we have to kind of retroactively go back and reverse engineer the colors and try to provide you with a baseline that you can use to get to where you want to be. And ultimately, even when you build the model, and we say this build the model the way you want. I can't tell you how to.
It's your model, whatever.
I can't tell you how to paint it. I can give you an idea, or like, when you look at Gary Kerr's research on the Star Trek Enterprise, the original Enterprise, they've really done their homework, and they tell you what they used, but for the most part, you do what looks right to you, and we just give you a baseline spectrum of colors for you to achieve that goal.
Well, I got to show you one color, Jeff, that I snuck in here, and you don't even know this color's in here. But it's Jared. This is one of Jared's colors. He likes this, so he's a big Alien fan and a big Predator fan. So see this one here? It's a weird name. We were trying to come up with something. We wanted to call it something other than what it is, and what it is the Predator skin base color.
Okay.
Now, obviously, if you build a Predator, you're going to build up layers upon layers upon layers of other colors on top of that. But yeah, use that cream base. We called it cream base and put it in the Universal series because it's a very interesting color. It's like somewhere between white, tan, and green. And it'd be a really good ground coverage color as well for dioramas. But yeah, there you go. You can build you a Predator now.
You're going to have to advertise that, because I was just thinking it was for like, coffee or something. I can't put Predator and cream base together and come up with anything logical, because
we'll lay it all out on the website, because how would you know what Space Wars Gray number 7 is if we didn't lay it out for you?
Well, that's not a hard stretch to make. I mean,
it's something in space, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, I was trying to find some more questions over here, or topics we can talk about for a few minutes before we get out of here for the evening. I had one, and it went somewhere. Went somewhere different than where I was looking. I took the paint chart off the thing, and my chat went and took me all the way to the bottom. Oh man.
Dave made a good point that,
okay,
it's hard to argue colors for fictional subjects. It is and it isn't. I mean, yes, the Millennium Falcon did not exist in reality. We can't go out and match the paint like we can on a Sherman tank or something like that. But I think it's, to a lesser extent, what the original modelers at ILM used when they were building the studio models. And again, Ron actually brought up a good point as well, that the models look considerably different on the screen than they do in reality,
right?
Because they're using all the lighting, they're hitting it with the harsh lighting and whatnot. So when
I'm gonna pull up our website real quick for anybody that hasn't seen this. Keep talking.
When you see these original surviving models in real life, they are very, very dark, and only when you saturate them with light do they actually lighten up, and you go, oh yeah, that's how it looked in the movie. So as modelers, we don't have the ability to do that. So we're going to paint our model to look the way it appeared on the screen to us, not necessarily the way Industrial Light and Magic painted it in 1977.
Excuse me. Well, this is the Squadron Colors website, and there's hardly anything here yet. I apologize, but it's coming. And I've shown you the beginning of the Fletcher page that's there. But the page that's actually done now is the Enterprise page. And this was written by Gary Kerr.
Gary Kerr was involved with the restoration of the large original studio scale model that was donated to the Smithsonian.
If you're interested in, first of all, how we came up with these colors, and we came up with them because he basically told us what to do. But this whole list here is how he came to these colors. But he talks about, these are some of the studio models, and there's a photo from the original set. And he goes through and talks about just what you were talking about, Jeff, about how they had to use certain paints to where it would look correct on the screen. So he even mentions in here, I mean, if you were to use the paint, the exact paint that was used, it may not look like you were expecting it to look, like it looked on the TV. And he just goes through all this stuff. It's very, very interesting. I like this picture here. He went and bought every type of paint and every mixture of color that he could come up with, and mixed colors for hours and hours and hours. And but he knows his stuff. But this is a very interesting article that he wrote. Just lots of good information.
I thought I was a color nerd until I read this. He is hardcore serious about this.
But this is the kind of hardcore serious that we hope to have on this website. I mean, Jeff, you're the hardcore serious guy for some things like these 20s and the U.S. Navy stuff. But we've we know people like Gary. I keep talking about Randy Van Dyke on the figure side. He's working on a how-to video and this type of thing for how to paint large-scale figures using these paints. And we know a lot of people that are experts in their field of interest. And we're hoping to have all this same type of information for all sorts of different genres, whether it's realistic and historical or whether it's science fiction. It's all fun and it's all part of this hobby. And we're just really hoping that this website can be a tool that you guys can use in your model building.
Part of it too is it's creating a bit of a community. There are names in this chat over here that these are the guys that I reach out to when I have questions about Navy colors and things of that nature. Gary Kerr is the guy that you reach out to if you're doing, the original Enterprise. And I think part of the goal of this site is to have a repository where we can gather up this knowledge as it applies to the paint colors that we offer or the products that we offer. So that if you decide that you want to take it to whatever degree you choose to, we've not only do we have the products to support you, but we're giving you the information to apply it properly.
Right. Oh yeah. Let me jump over here real quick. Mike Bishop's asking about Pontos doing a Fletcher set. Mike, I know that they intend to, and I know that because they were trying to get a Fletcher from me when they found out that I had a prototype, but I was not able to send that to them. I was commissioned to do reviews and builds and all that fun stuff for Trumpeter on it. But I know that they were looking for one, and he said that he would get with me as soon as they were officially released so I could send him one. I didn't hear from him about that, so I'm just assuming that he found one elsewhere. So I got to believe that they'll have one at some point. Here's the question that I lost a little while ago. Kimberly says, the only way I can get to your site is through Google and would love to have a shortcut. All right, so if you want to get to our website using something besides Google, just go up to, and it's not going to show you me doing this on this screen, but type in www.squadron.com, just like you would go to www.google.com, but just go to squadron.com, hit enter, and you should pull it right up. So that's and once you get there, you can, of course, create bookmarks or home shortcuts or whatever you do on your computer or tab or whatever you're using. But yeah, just go to www.squadron.com. And that should work for you, hopefully. Sorry that you had trouble with that. Let's see. And Ed asking if we have a link to that paint list. The paint list that I was showing on the screen there, I don't have a link to that yet because I'll be honest with you. I finished that photo about 10 minutes before this show started. And that's no joke. When did I show it to you, Jeff? It was about 10 minutes. What?
About 10 minutes before we launched, yeah.
I said, look, it's done.
Yeah.
And
then he says to me, look at it and make any change, let me know of any changes I make before we go. And I'm like,
I asked him, I said, hey, can you proofread it for me? Make sure I didn't misspell anything. And he's
I got 5 minutes before we go live and you want me to proofread. Okay.
But we'll get that posted up sometime, Ed. I got to go back through it, and there's a couple things I got to modify, but we'll get that up as soon as we can. Let's see. Here you go, Jeff. Here's something that's in your wheelhouse. Jason's asking about Pearl Harbor P-40B.
Already answered him.
Oh,
olive drab 41 over neutral gray. Good deal. And I think it was Dave Sanchez who asked about the AVG P40s, and don't quote me on it, but I think some of the early batches, the early P40s that the AVG used were actually supposed to be British. They were slated to go to the Royal Air Force. And if I remember correctly, and someone will probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they were actually painted in RAF colors initially.
Okay.
But let me look into that and make absolutely sure. So don't quote me on it.
Here is something that that I want you to talk about for just a second, Jeff, if I can put you on the spot for a minute. And don't worry, you're fine. So
That remains to be seen. That's a really subjective statement to make.
all right. So we were talking about this as we were mixing up the Insignia blue,
Yes.
and and of course, FS did not exist in World War II.
Correct.
But after that, they continued to use that color, and they assigned an FS color to it. So
Correct.
there are two different FS colors for the same color. And if you look over here, and this was an answer that I was talking to a guy today about on the phone, SCA 001, Sea Blue. And the customer was asking, he wanted to order some Sea Blue. He wanted to order some non-specular Sea Blue. And after I explained to him what you're about to explain to us, he understood. But there are a lot of colors on our list that are very close to what a modeler might need, but it's not listed exactly how his instructions may be calling for it.
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about the difference in two colors that are identical with one exception.
So if you look at SCA 001, SCA 001 can actually do three different colors that have official designations. So and the ANA number, I believe, for U.S. Navy non-specular Sea Blue is ANA 607, I believe. That is the same color as 623 in a flat. So flat, semi-gloss, and gloss. Non-specular, if you ever see non-specular, that's flat. That's just a fancy way of saying flat sea blue. Because our particular paint is formulated as a semi-gloss, and that is for again going back to my original logic of I want to try to eliminate steps in the process of you put a primer down, then you put a flat coat down, then you put a gloss coat down, then you put your decal over the gloss coat, and then you put a flat coat over the top of that. That's 6 layers of paint. So by mixing scale colors as a semi-gloss, you put your primer down, you put your color down, you put your decal on top of it, you put your flat coat on top of that, or your clear coat, regardless of whether it's flat or gloss or semi. You're putting 3 layers of paint on the model, which preserves detail, and it requires a lot less work. So Sea Blue, for example, ANA 608 or 607, and then 623. All of those Sea Blues are the same. Now, as Ron pointed out, 5S Sea Blue is a ship color, and that is not the same as the ANA Sea Blue that you put on aircraft. So you be mindful of the names and the designations. Those are 5S Sea Blue is a color that went on actual ships. ANA Sea Blue is the color that went on aircraft.
Right. And this kind of information is, again, something that we intend to put on the website. So if you're looking for that, that non-spec Sea Blue, and you're like, wow, why don't they have it? Well, we will have that noted on the website. So when you're searching for that color, this one's going to come up with an explanation as to why. All you got to do is put this down and then shoot your flat coat on it, and poof, you got it.
Now, I will add to that with the FS system. The first number of any FS number denotes the luster of the paint. 15044 is gloss blue. 25044 is semi-gloss blue. I'm sorry, 15044 is gloss. 25044 is semi. 35044 is flat. They are the same color. One's flat, one's semi, one's gloss, but they're the exact same color. So if you're rummaging through your paint and you need 35044 and you don't have any, but you have 25044, spray it and then put a flat coat over it. Get you the same
Because
thing.
as you guys know, flat, semi, gloss, heck, we're even going to bottle up some satin to
Yep.
get between the flat or the clear coat makes a huge difference in what the color actually looks like.
Correct.
But, you know, when you're painting the inside of your house, that's why Home Depot has like 12 different sheens of paint. You can get flat or matte or satin or eggshell or, I mean, they got so many different options because it really makes a difference in the what the final color looks like.
Here's a little bit of color geek history, and I can't lay claim to this. This was Jamie Duff and Richard Dennis from the UK. The Royal Navy had a color AP 507A and AP 507B. For decades, everyone thought that they were different colors, and the A and the B just designated the different tones. Well, Richard Dennis and Jamie Duff determined that AP 507A was the gloss color and AP 507B was the flat color. One was pre-war and one was wartime. They went to a flat paint during the war to reduce light reflection and whatnot for camouflage purposes. So when we did AP 507, we put AP 507A/B. If you're painting your ship in pre-war, then you put a gloss coat on it or a semi-gloss coat for scale. If you're painting it as a wartime ship like HMS Hood, you're going to flat coat it, but it's the same paint. When you flat coat with gloss versus semi versus flat, it changes the perception of the color.
Right.
They look different.
Yep. And because of all of this stuff, hopefully you guys can understand why all this is taking us so long, because there's so many little details like this. Like, for example, that A and the B, we've got to put a section on the website explaining that. You would never know. I would never know. And a lot of these colors in here are so, you just, unless we have a list of what they're for, you would never know. And a minute ago, I think Russ must have pulled it up on the screen. Somebody was asking about doing a cross reference to other paint companies, and it is inevitable that we're going to do something at some point, but we're trying to figure out what, and we can explain why that is such a complicated matter. We can talk about that another night, but we are working on something that will allow you to. The problem, in short, is when Trumpeter calls for Tamiya Ocean Gray, they might call for Tamiya Ocean Gray in this kit, and they really meant 5H or 5.0 or whatever gray it is. And then they'll call for that same Ocean Gray in this other kit when that needs Dunkelgrau. I mean, I know that's extreme, but my point is, so for us to say our 20B deck blue equals this color in Tamiya, that may be true. Our color might look very, very, very close to their color. But when you open your model kit up and Trumpeter or whoever it says, yeah, use this color for this, and then you go over and grab our 20B deck blue, it may not be what you need for that ship. So we're trying to figure out how to have something that says our color is very close to Tamiya's whatever it is.
Right.
But we're going to have some caveat so you guys know that just because our color of gray looks very similar to Tamiya's color of gray, that does not mean that you necessarily need to use our color if Trumpeter says use that color for Tamiya. So it's there's a lot to it.
You and I got into is probably as close to a heated conversation as you and I have ever been when we were talking about this, that I think that it's actually easier it was easier for me to release a bottle of 20B deck blue and then educate everyone on where to apply deck blue. It was easier to do that than it was for me to say, this is deck blue, and this is if Tamiya says you need this is what you need. Or if Hasegawa says you need this is what you need. Because that variable on the right, if Hasegawa, if Tamiya, if Aoshima, if Trumpeter, if they say you need this, those are 4 different things that I then have to funnel back to one. It's easier for me to just educate you and tell you, if you're building a U.S. Navy ship and there's a camouflage pattern on the deck, it's 20B in ocean gray.
Yep.
If there's no camouflage pattern on the deck, it's 20B, unless it's an aircraft carrier. It's easier for me to educate people and standardize that in a broad manner than it is for me to try to nitpick 500 different manufacturers and say this is their cross reference.
Right. And then on the other side of the coin, my part of the argument was, if I've got a customer that has built 100 ships in his fleet and he's used that color for every one of his ships, regardless of if it's accurate or not, and he wants to try our paint, he needs the closest match to that color, we're trying to accommodate those customers too. So like I said, we're trying to come up with something, and we're going to do something, and it all hinges on this website that we're working on. And I think you guys probably have a pretty good idea of why it's taking us so long now, because there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of information to be put onto the website. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
And of course, Ron throws in the kit. I think this man just lives to throw a curveball over the plate, because I say something and he's got an exception to the rule.
Well, if you think about it, Jeff, back during the war,
he's been doing that to me for 25 years.
I know. But I had a customer, I forget who it was, but his dad served on, going back to PT boats. His dad served on PT boats, and he showed me a picture of his dad's boat, and it was painted. I don't even know what it was, and the guy didn't even know what it was. And he said, "Well, we needed to repaint it. Didn't have any paint, so they had a bunch of different gallons of paint. They threw them all in a bucket, mixed them up, and painted it. They needed some paint." So there's going to always be exceptions to whatever rules, it just doesn't matter. You're going to be able to come up with something, because back then, during that time, if you needed something, you needed something. It didn't, to some degree, it didn't matter.
Oh, here we go. This will take us off topic.
All right, good.
Yeah. If Jeff has German ancestry, it makes sense. Believe it or not, I am what the Canadians call First Nations. I am what the Americans call Native American. I was born and raised on an Indian reservation in upstate New York. There's no German heritage in my veins that I am aware of. But so there's something else you probably didn't care to know about.
There you go.
But hey, I'm at least I'm not related to Pocahontas, right?
Yeah, well, some of us might be. So let's see. I'm trying to get down here. I don't want to leave any good questions out. Okay, here we go. So going back to our super chat buddy here, David, he's talking about F-35s growing. Regardless of the reason, and this may very well be part of it, David, but the F-35 kits have been really popular lately. Tamiya has just done an outstanding job in both 48 scale and in 72 scale, and they're not done. They've got their next version of it in 72 scale coming out, and we should have them in time for nationals. The C model, I believe, is the next one. But
while we're on the topic of F-35s, it was mentioned further up about Have Glass Gray. Have Glass Gray is going to make what little hair I have left in my head fall out. It's a metallic. It's a gray color, but it's got a metallic sheen to it, and it's almost like a color shifting paint, depending on what angle and that you're looking at it, and the sunlight and whatnot. It changes value. I'm trying to figure that out. And that ties in with the metallics.
Yeah, Tom keeps asking about the metal. Sorry, Tom, I wasn't trying to ignore you. I saw your question up higher. The metal colors, that is not on the menu for nationals. We're going to try to finish all the other sticks in the fire for nationals, and then hopefully jump over to that after nationals. But
Have glass gray is one of those problematic colors that I said, yeah, we need to do have glass gray, and we committed to it. And then all of a sudden I realized this is going to be a real pain.
So here's a question then, Jeff, and we'll leave it to the guys in the comments. Let's see what your opinions are, because I've asked several of our customers about this in person. So the have glass gray, the metallic, the sheen, the color change, whatever it is that we're not supposed to even know about. You
Right.
can't exactly call the Air Force or any of them and say, hey, what's that formula? So it kind of changes depending on sunlight, depending on the angle. I mean, that's what it's for. It's meant to throw you off. So depending on how you saw the F-35 at the air show or whatever, it might look different than when I saw it, or the picture you saw, or whatever. So here's my question, guys. What if we have the gray, the color of gray? It's an FS color. That's public knowledge. We have that. Well, I can put it in a bottle and send it to you. What if we did that? What if we just give you the gray and then you apply your own amount of metallic? Because some people might want it more metallic-y, if that's a word, than others.
Metallica.
And so all the other paint companies that do this color, it's a mixed, but everybody does it different. Some put too much metallic in some people's opinion, some put not enough. So we thought, why don't we just not put any in it, and then you can add your own sheen over top of it, and you can put as much as you want or as little as you want. I mean, what do you guys think about that as a game plan to tackle this this color?
I was this is always in the back of my head because it's kind of an enigma to me. And I saw a model online recently of an F-35 painted in the have glass gray, and it, to my eye, it looked right. So I messaged the modeler, and he said that he sprayed a gray, and he didn't tell me what gray he sprayed, but he sprayed a thin coat of Tamiya clear yellow over the top.
Excuse me. Really? Okay.
And I thought, wow, that actually makes sense. So that's kind of nestled away in the back of my head as a potential option to try to do. And of course, I've noticed, Ron and Jason have and Brian have come up with the idea of doing a two-tone or a two coat solution. Right, and that's not a bad idea. I haven't given it any time because obviously we're in crazy mode for the Nats and R&D and chemistry and experimenting. Those are things that I do when there's nothing that needs to be produced or printed or painted or built or designed or researched. So it's right up there. And every time I say this, I'm looking over there off camera is all of my big stack of metallic parts and pigments and micas and clear coats and everything else. And that's kind of in that, it's lumped into that group with the metallic colors. Oh yeah. Well, we don't have a lot of comments specifically to answering that question, but the couple of guys that are talking about, Bob says I'd be good with that. So, I mean, this is kind of what we have been thinking. That have glass gray is going to be the last color we bottle up, but Crystal's out there literally right now bottling stuff up, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we're going to have to make a decision on that have glass gray. And if we had to make the decision tonight, this is the way that we're leaning. Just bottle the gray up, and we'll deal with the sheen later, or the metallic, or whatever the correct terminology is, the clear coat for it. Yeah. So that's, like I said, that's where we're leaning. So,
Recon says any gallery airbrushes at all. I don't have any at the moment, but that's another one of those things that's on the menu for after nationals. Is we've got a couple of different plans for that, and we'll be bringing some airbrushes in soon. But I don't know specifically which ones yet. We're talking to some manufacturers about
that. Was something else that I don't want to say it snowballed out of control, but when we started looking at airbrushes, all of a sudden they were coming in from 25 different directions, and it kind of overwhelmed us both.
Yep.
And that's, I think, when we made the decision that, okay, let's just figure this out. So, we got some things in the works. We've made some phone calls, we've made some emails, and there are some conversations going, and we'll see. We will see what works out best for all parties.
Oh yeah. It'll be good. Well, Jeff, I guess that's going to wrap us up for the evening. I think we had a few fun topics to talk about, and
I need to go to sleep.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to next week. Next week will be our July show and tell. So everybody make sure to send in your models sometime between now. It is my preference to get them by Tuesday. It makes it easier for me to get the slideshows put together, but just make sure you get them to me before Wednesday afternoon. And I'm going to answer this last question, then we're going to get out of here. Brett says, will the catalog ever be restocked? The catalog will never be restocked, because if we print another one, it would be updated and different. And we actually do have an 80-page catalog that is actually printed, and we will actually have them in hand in time to give some of those out at Nationals. And then right when we get back from Nationals, because I probably won't have time to do it before we go, we are going to be sending those out at no charge to all the customers who had pre-ordered one of our big catalogs that we unfortunately had to cancel. So if you had pre-ordered one of those, you will be getting one of these for free in the mail. And then if there are any left, we will make those available to anybody else that would like one. I don't know how many of them we're sending out at this point. I haven't even looked at the list, but we do finally have something else printed there. All that's in it is model kits. There's no accessories, no tools. There's a Squadron Colors paint list in it, but that's it. It's just 80 pages of model kits, but it is something to physically hold on to, and we're not charging for it. So anyway, it's going to wrap us up, Jeff. I appreciate you being here with me again tonight.
My pleasure, as always. I hope you have a good 4th of July weekend. I hope everyone has a good 4th of July weekend.
Absolutely. Yeah. Same to you.
Have fun. And it's very, very rare that I get up on a soapbox. And we all know why it's 4th of July. It's Independence Day. But I do have a very, 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 very serious request for anyone. Please don't blow your fingers off. It really, really wrecks with your model building. So, fireworks from a safe distance, and try to keep all 10 fingers.
There you go. All right. Well, cool. I appreciate you. You guys take it easy, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for your time, everyone.
See you next week.